downloaded the Buckeye Leafcast with your host, Andrew T. Evans, with special guest, Chris Stefanick.
So let's talk about Penn State. Their schedule last year shaped up for a big win against us, which they did. Now this year, Ohio State's schedule shaping up to possibly get a big win because of what Penn State has to do before they play us. So they have Michigan at home, though, I believe, this coming Saturday.
Correct.
But then they have to hit the road and play Ohio State. So
they've got Michigan at Ohio State at Michigan State. That's their next three games.
Tell you what, man, Ohio State's schedule, I mean, dude, there's a couple of, quote unquote, easy games, Illinois, and I'm not going to say Iowa's an easy game. I mean, it's going to be on the road. And Iowa always seems to play Ohio State tough. But yeah, Penn State, man, their next three games, I mean, that's murderer's row.
Yeah,
right there.
That's brutal. And then they close the year with like 3 bye weeks. It's like Rutgers, Nebraska, and at Maryland.
Oh, geez. That's a nice way to wind up your year.
Well, you would rather like to, if you're a Nittany Lion fan, you'd like to see mix in those 3 games with the 3 games they have next, that murderer's row you were talking about. So instead of getting those 3 straight, how about, Michigan, then we get Rutgers, then Ohio State, then we get, a Maryland or a Nebraska before you
kind of
go into,
sprinkle them in,
yeah. But,
instead of all tough and then all weak, which, look at Ohio State. I mean, they, had 5 straight, winnable games, and then they're going to take a week off, and then the last 5 games of the year here are, 3 of them, certainly Penn State, Michigan State, and Michigan. Thankfully, though, they're not all back to back to back like Penn State has, we get to sprinkle ours in. Penn State, then they get Iowa, then they get Michigan State, then they get Illinois, then they wind up north against the smelly rodents to end the year. So, I don't know, man. Is this a winnable football game legitimately for Ohio State? What are their chances of beating Penn State? I mean, is revenge on their mind? We're going to ask Urban. We're going to ask the players. They're going to say no. But come on, folks. Is revenge not on the Buckeyes' mind in 2 weeks when they take on the Nittany Lions? What do you think, dude?
Oh, yeah. I mean, as far as is this winnable or not, I don't know how much you go to ESPN.com, but ESPN has this matchup predictor, and I would like to know what it's from. It says at the bottom, this is according to ESPN's Football Power Index. They have Ohio State's odds of winning at 75.1%. Penn State at 24.9.
Ooh, boy, I don't know about that, dude. Are you serious?
75.1%. I'm like, I could see Ohio State winning, but I'm thinking 50, 55, 60. 70.
I'm going to give Ohio State a slight 51% edge. I might even go 55%, but 75% chance? What in the hell are they basing that on?
I mean, I guess, there's a couple ways to look at it. So if you're looking at this team, you're thinking this is 2014 Ohio State. I think anybody would say 2014 Ohio State would probably have a 75% chance of beating 2017 Penn State. So is this that level of team? Maybe that's what it's based on. But it's the Power Football Index, or Football Power Index, rather. I have no idea what that is. Maybe it's just like a computer thing. So there's that. And so the computers might just be looking at margin of victory versus lesser competition. I don't know. But I would be interested to see what Vegas is saying, because currently Penn State is listed number 2 in the country, Ohio State number 6. But if you ask Vegas who had the best shot at winning the national title right now, I'm guessing blah 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 blah. I'm guessing that Ohio State would not be the 6th team on that list. Probably 2, maybe 3 on that list is my guess. So I'm wondering. I really would like to know what the spread is, because I will not be shocked at all, especially at home, if Ohio, and we won't get the spread for another week or so. So who knows? But don't be surprised if Ohio State is favored against Penn State, even though Penn State number 2, Ohio State number 6, assuming Penn State can hold on to number 2 with a game, versus the Meat Chickens coming up here. So
yeah, and if it's such a double-edged.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's such a double-edged sword, this Penn State-Michigan game coming up, because as I've always stated, as much as I hate to root for Michigan, I do like to see them as good as possible when we play them, just because of several factors. But if Penn State, we've got a Penn State game coming up too. I don't want them to be coming off a loss and be pissed off and wanting to exact, their revenge on Ohio State after losing the week before to Michigan. So, I guess, hey, just hopefully it's a great game. I mean, I'm looking forward to sitting down and watching that one next Saturday. But, nonetheless, God, what do you want Michigan to be good? So at the end of the year, it's a great game. Not that it's not a great game. Any Ohio State-Michigan game, I'm going to be fired up to watch, but still, it's, I guess quite honestly at this point, I would rather see, because here's the thing, okay, let's just play it out in this regard. So obviously Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, all in the same division. Michigan's already got a loss to Michigan State. If Penn State beats Michigan, that effectively, I think, puts them out. I mean, not completely. I mean, still, there would be an opportunity for Michigan to make the Big Ten title game. But if Penn State beats Michigan, I think for the most part, Michigan's out, right? Then Ohio State, obviously, with a win over Penn State, controls their own destiny and only having really one more game to win Michigan State, and then they could legitimately go up to Ann Arbor and lose. Not that I want to see that happen, obviously, but if they do, they would then have one loss in the conference and, theoretically tie with either, let's just say, Penn State or Michigan State at that point, and have that head-to-head win. Yeah, and get into the game. So I guess just from a logistical standpoint in that regard, you probably do have to root for Penn State this weekend just for that reason alone.
Yeah, well, there's that, and there's also the whole signature win thing. That does matter, like in the committee's mind. Not that a 12-1 Ohio State team isn't going to make the playoffs, because they are. They don't really, regardless of what happens with Penn State, Michigan, if Ohio State's 12-1 at the end of, the conference championship weekend, they're in. But that signature win looks really good. Like if Penn State's only loss was to Ohio State, then that's a huge signature win for Ohio State. And Penn State would close the year very much a top 10 team at that point. If they close the year 11-1 with their only loss to a 12-1 Ohio State, I mean, they might even still be top 5. They might be on that bubble, just outside of making the playoff. Because that's a really, as far as losses go, that's a good loss, right? Your only loss was to, a playoff team. So
what would happen though, dude? How pissed off would you be if you're a Penn State fan and what happened last year? They win the conference championship game. They get snubbed from the college football playoff, and the team that they decide to put in, Ohio State, they beat earlier in the season. And then, of course, Ohio State looks the way they do in the college football playoff. Fast forward a year later, Ohio State beats Penn State, but Penn State's only got one loss. Ohio State moves on to play in the Big Ten championship game, wins that, and then the college football playoff committee decides, well, hey, you know what? We screwed up last year when we put Ohio State in and being a non-conference winner. So Ohio State won the conference championship this year. So we're going to go ahead and play it smart and put them in as a representative of the Big Ten in the college football playoff. Would that not just irk Penn State fans? They'd be like, dude, last year you snubbed us. This year our only losses to those guys, and it was a good quality loss on the road. We should get in over them just because of what you did to us last year. But then Ohio State would get in once again to the college football playoff. Now, of course, I'm conjecturing and I'm looking way ahead in the future, way ahead, but it's always fun to kind of surmise.
Yeah, man.
Opine. What coulda, woulda, shoulda,
Yeah. Well, that I hear Penn State fans are going to be bitching if that happens. And that's a possibility. There's a lot of games to be played though yet for both Ohio State and Penn State to end up not being able to make that scenario pan out, right? But namely those next three you just mentioned for Penn State, and of course Ohio State's got not the easiest schedule in the world from here on out either.
Yeah.
But another scenario, I don't think. See, if that plans out, I don't think anybody is going to be complaining about Penn State getting snubbed if a conference champion Ohio State with the head-to-head victory goes to the playoffs over top of Penn State. The only people that are going to be complaining is Penn State fans. Everybody else is going to be saying, well, of course, they got the head-to-head victory and they're the conference champions. Of course they go in.
Right.
Now, what could be an interesting debate is what if at the end of the season you got a conference champion with one loss, Ohio State, and conference champion with one loss, Oklahoma, where Oklahoma's got the head-to-head victory, but Ohio State is ranked higher and generally thought of better. I think Ohio State gets in, and Oklahoma fans are going to be pissed. Now, I don't know that Oklahoma's going to win out because ever since they beat Ohio State, I feel like they shot their load in that one.
They peaked a little too early.
Yeah, I think they spent the entire offseason preparing for one game, and then when they won that game, they were ready to be crowned champion, and they're like, "Oh my God, we still have to, play other games." And that's kind of what it looks like right now.
We got a lot more
to go. And it's like, I guess there's other football to be played because they sometimes you can put it together for 1 week, and that doesn't mean that you're legit. Just because you're able to put it together for 1 week, and that's almost the vibe I'm getting from Oklahoma right now. So, but yeah, that's gonna be real interesting to see what the committee does. If it's down to that, you got 11-1 conference champion Oklahoma versus 11-1 or 12-1 Ohio State conference champion, with Ohio State ranked higher and generally thought of as being better, looking better on the field, but having the head-to-head loss.
Well, and see, there you go, and that's part of the schematics. When it comes to us human beings and our brains processing information. I mean, in that regard, let's say that Ohio State, Oklahoma both finished the season 12-1, yet Ohio State is looking better, is looking, just the eye test. Going off of that, you can just you feel it, you see it, you sense it. You're just like, man, Ohio State is just playing better football than Oklahoma right now. But to be fair, this is still an Ohio State team that head-to-head lost to Oklahoma. And yes, Oklahoma may not be playing as good a football right now, but I'm sorry, Oklahoma still beat you, Ohio State. So in that regard, they're in over us. Would that piss us off? I mean, would we have a legitimate gripe of saying, well, but we're playing better than you guys right now? Well, at the end of the day, records are the same, and technically head-to-head,
they wouldn't be the same
team.
Ohio State would have that championship matchup that the Big 12 does not have.
Well, no, the Big 12 has a championship game now.
Do they have that now?
Yes.
Are you kidding me?
No.
I did not know that. Wow.
Yeah, this is going to be the first year that they're re-implementing the championship game.
Man.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm actually, as a college football fan, I'm glad to see that happen. That's pretty cool. So.
Yeah, I know. Because I mean, it's been like 3 or 4 years now that the Big 12 has not had that championship game, because they had obviously Missouri, A&M, of course Nebraska left, but I think right after Missouri and A&M left, which was 2012 or 13, is when they did away with it. But yeah, man, it's back. The Big 12 championship game is back. So, yeah. So there's a chance that, Oklahoma wins their conference championship game, and they and Ohio State have identical records, and they both would have conference titles. But let's just say the eye test, and of course we're conjecturing because of what we've seen the last couple of weekends out of Ohio State and Oklahoma. And Oklahoma has not played great football, obviously losing at home a couple of weekends ago to Iowa State, a team that they were double-digit favorites over. Iowa State was like 2-2 walking into that game, and Iowa State pulls off the win. And they didn't look real great against Texas yesterday either. They did it first. They jumped out to an early 20-0 lead, and then Texas fought all the way back to take the lead, like 24 to 23 at one point, and Oklahoma scored a late touchdown to pull ahead and win the game 29-24. But still, yeah, Oklahoma's not been looking great. So going off of the last couple of games that we've seen Ohio State dominate and Oklahoma look very iffy, and to your point, they probably got up a little too high, peaked a little bit, shot their load a little too soon, and when getting ready for Ohio State. And now, Ohio State, it's taken that loss to really reinvigorate Ohio State. And once again, very 2014-esque, where they're looking pissed off. They're looking hungry. They're using that Oklahoma loss as motivation, just like they did in 2014 when they lost at home in a night game to Virginia Tech. But still, Chris, at the end of the year, if the two teams have the same records, and Oklahoma gets in, but it's clear that Ohio State's been playing better football, can we be pissed off? I don't think we can. I don't think we have an argument at that point.
No, you're right. We probably can't make an argument. I think you're right. We can, but it's not going to be a very good one.
Yeah. Right. We can argue all we want.
Well, the one argument we've got is our one loss is a really good loss because it's versus a team that's being considered for the playoffs, where their one loss is a bad loss versus a mediocre Big 12 team.
Well, and I'm sure that's going to be the one argument that people would bring up, is that, well, Oklahoma, our loss was to you, and you're better than Iowa State, but not really, because Iowa State beat you. So it's kind of like, wait a minute, how, I don't know. I just, and hey, once again, we're conjecturing, let's hope that things obviously pan out the way they do. But as we saw this past weekend, that's why they play the game, because you just never know.
Dude, I would love to have a rematch versus Oklahoma in the playoffs. I think that would be awesome if they both made it.
Dude, let me tell you what, totally different football game. Totally different.
Oh, yeah. And you want to talk about, we were saying before, motivation coming into the game. Do you think Ohio State's not going to be motivated to play that game? Holy smokes. So that would be really something to see that game. I would be jacked.
It would be interesting to see how motivated Oklahoma would be. Because you play a team and it's like, oh man, we got to rematch them, and we already got excited to play you guys once. It's kind of hard to get excited to play the same team again if you win, in the same season. Now, obviously, Ohio State would be jacked to play that game. But, yeah, for Oklahoma, that might be a reversal where Ohio State really comes out and looks good and dominates Oklahoma on a neutral field just because they're so pumped and primed and ready. And, of course, dude, there can't be a Buckeye fan out there that is not hoping that we get to see Oklahoma again in the Final Four. You know what I mean? Dude, everybody. As soon as Ohio State lost, as soon as the last second ticked off the clock, people were talking rematch then. Right. And it was the second damn game of the year, and everybody's like, well, let's hope that we rematch them in the, the Final Four, the college football playoff, and I'm like, well, yeah, and I can't sit here and say that it wasn't on my mind too. I'm like, man, I hope we see these bastards again, Right. So,
well, if Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, and Oklahoma win out, that's your Final Four. Just looking at the rankings right now, that's your Final Four because they would have beat everybody else that would have been in their way. So that would give Ohio State, that would put probably Ohio State and Clemson, so you get a rematch of last year. Ohio State would get the rematch then in the opening round, 2-3 Ohio State versus Clemson. And then if Oklahoma were able to beat Alabama, which, is in the realm of possibility, I certainly wouldn't put my money that way, but it's in the realm of possibility, then it would give Ohio State the chance that they could get revenge on both Clemson and Oklahoma. That would be really, really cool if it were to play out that way. That's like the storybook ending right there. So
yeah, it is.
I would love to see that happen, but, there's so much football to be played that, I'm certainly not like predicting that or anything, but.
Well, yeah, I mean, you just look at the top 10 right now. Alabama, number 1, Georgia's number 3.
Right, but they
so
would play. If they went out, they would play. So
they're going to play each other. Penn State's 2, Wisconsin is 5, Ohio State is 6.
Yeah, so Ohio State would play.
Still have Michigan and Michigan State that they're in the background,
right?
But they're not. They're pretty far down at 18.
But even if Penn State wins every game but Ohio State's going to leap them. Even if Wisconsin wins every game but Ohio State in the championship game, Ohio State's going to leap them. So they'll knock them out. And then the only other team that gets in the way of that would be Oklahoma. There's TCU's up there ahead of Oklahoma, but Oklahoma will play them, so they'd knock them out.
Yep.
And technically Miami is ahead of Oklahoma, but I believe Miami still has to play Clemson. So if Clemson wins out, let me just check the schedule.
Yeah, I'm not sure if
actually no, they don't.
Yeah,
but I think they would meet. It don't look like they play each other, but surely they would then meet in the conference. If Miami and Clemson win out, then they're meeting in the ACC title game. I gotta believe. Yeah,
because I believe those two are
right?
in separate.
How else could it be?
Let me see here. Blah 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 blah.
So that would be
standings. Yeah, they're in separate divisions. Clemson's in the Atlantic and Miami's in the Coastal.
Yeah, so there you go.
Yeah. Yep. So they're exactly. So
those teams
Clemson
went
and
out,
Miami.
So it's possible.
Yep.
The storybook ending is possible at this point.
Yeah. I mean, obviously everybody controls their own destiny. Ohio State certainly, with got 5 huge games coming up here, but the way they're playing right now, I would not doubt it if they roll through at least undefeated until they get to the Michigan game. I'll never predict a win over Michigan ever in my life. John Cooper trained me too well to never think that Ohio State is better than Michigan, even when you can tell that they are.
Yeah, well.
So at this point, Ohio State at least controls their destiny up to the Michigan game, and I would not doubt to see them pull off some wins here, and roll into the Michigan game with just the one loss to Oklahoma.
So speaking of predicting victories, what is your prediction for Ohio State versus Penn State this weekend?
Hey, I think revenge is on their mind. It's going to be interesting to see what happens between Penn State and Michigan. I'm going, oh God, I hate to do this. Okay. I'm going, here's the keys to the game. Can Ohio State honestly contain Saquon Barkley? And can they put enough pressure on Trace McSorley to make a difference in that regard? If McSorley is able to scramble around and throw, and obviously Barkley is able to get his yards, I don't think that Barkley's going to get quite the number of yards that he has gotten per game up to this point, but I think that he's gonna get some yards. I mean, this Ohio State defense is not exactly stout, and Barkley did put a hurting on Ohio State. The last time that they played in the shoe in 2015, Barkley went nuts and I think had at least 180 yards on the ground. I think he had over 200 total for the game. So Barkley has proven that he can play against Ohio State. And I think he had a pretty good game last year, if I'm not mistaken, too. But if Ohio State can at least control him and contain him to the point of not getting a ton of yards and making a huge impact, I still think it's going to be close. I think that Ohio State just barely pulls it out, but it's going to look something similar to how they won last year, or how they lost last year, and how Penn State won. A 3-point game. I think it's going to be a game in the mid to upper 20s, like a 27-24 Ohio State win. So I'm going to go with that. I'm going to go with 27-24 Buckeyes. What say you?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I was looking at the ESPN, matchup page. There's a dude that just shows like some of the stats of the different teams, and it's got that matchup predictor of 75.1% victory for Ohio State and all of that. But they had the season leaders category. It caught my eye. So Saquon Barkley is like this, god, right? He's listed as the rushing leader for Penn State, 102 carries, 649 yards, 6 TDs. Meanwhile, the rushing leader for Ohio State, J.K. Dobbins, 100 carries, so less carries, 775 yards, and 5 TDs. So,
whoa.
He's actually has more yardage on less carries for one J.K. Dobbins, and comparable number of TDs, 6 versus 5. Now, J.K. Dobbins, while he's beating Saquon Barkley as the rushing leader, on receiving end, the receiving leader is not J.K. Dobbins, but it is Saquon Barkley for Penn State. So Saquon Barkley, the receiving leader for Penn State, 29 receptions, 395 yards, 2 TDs. The receiving leader for Ohio State, Paris Campbell, 28 receptions, 405 yards, and 2 TDs. So more yardage on less receptions, more yardage, the same number of TDs there. Now, McSorley, the other thing they show is passing leaders. McSorley versus Barrett. Well, Barrett, as we know, is being discussed for getting an invite to New York for the Heisman finals, where McSorley is not. So McSorley, he has 1,597 yards passing, where JT has 1,838 yards passing, so quite a bit more yardage. McSorley, 13 TDs versus 4 interceptions. JT, 21 TDs versus 1 interception. So, and that's not even including like the rushing, right? So, and also when you look at the Saquon Barkley, J.K. Dobbins has more yardage rushing than Saquon Barkley, but Ohio State's kind of like a 3-headed monster with Weber and Barrett, where Saquon Barkley is like the man there. So that's just kind of an interesting little thing to look at. I get it. Barkley's doing a lot. He's also doing on special teams, getting returns for touchdowns and all that. But Ohio State's got some players as well. So having said all of that, the predictions for the game. Now, I thought that Iowa put out the blueprint for how you contain Saquon Barkley, how you dare I say, shut down Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, they did a good job.
They did a pretty good job.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then they forced McSorley to win the game, which he did. So, and my thinking was, hey, Michael Hill's back. Michael Hill is like an NFL defensive tackle. He's the only real big plugger that they've got. They've got a lot of lighter athletic defensive tackles, or a big plugger that's eat up blocks, freeing up the linebackers to get in there and make a tackle. That can be really helpful versus, rushing attack, right? I'm like, they're going to get Michael Hill in there, a lot of reps, have him raring to go. He's going to be getting reps with the first stringers all week in the bye week. And he's gonna be in that rotation. I was surprised Michael Hill, coming off a 6-game suspension, all he did was he didn't get in till mop-up duty. He was in there with basically the 4th string defensive tackle. So
I noticed that too. Yeah, I thought that was rather interesting.
Yeah, I was like, does that mean he's really not that good? Is this still a lingering punishment? You got to earn your spot back? Or does he need to get or work his way into game shape, and he's just really not as good at this point? Or it's got to be one of those. He's either not as good as what we were expecting him to be, or he's he's being punished and having to force turn it back. But I'm like, man, I really wanted to see him come in ready with the rust knocked off for Penn State. So,
yeah, that's kind of tough. I mean, to you finally, your suspension's done, you're able to play, and then the first game back, you're gonna have to then take a week off before you play, one of the biggest games of the year. And I was kind of thinking the same thing. I thought, man, why aren't we seeing Michael Hill? But for some reason, Meyer just felt that this was the game for him to come in and knock that rust off. Absolutely. And I don't know if that happened or not.
Yeah, this was a game where, Ohio State was up by like what, 40-something points at halftime or something. And, they could have really emptied the bench. And he kept the starters in there into like the fourth quarter. I remember seeing
yep.
There's it's fourth quarter. They're up by 35 points. And our starting left tackle, by all accounts, the most important guy on the offensive line, the best player on the offensive line, is lying on the ground, injured. And I'm sitting here, are you freaking kidding me? Why are these guys still in the game?
Yep.
So if anything, my point being, even if you wanted to say, okay, you're going to have to earn your time back, you're going to get a little punt, we're not going to put you in the rotation. They could have still got him in, and had him play the whole second half and be like, okay, well, now the game's in hand. So we're rotating in more subs. So don't think, Michael Hill, that you're scot-free now. You're just, they could have did that even, but they didn't. He didn't get in there till the fourth quarter, So that was kind of disappointing. But having said all of that, I still like Ohio State in this game. So they're clicking right now. I kind of almost wish there wasn't a bye week because they've got that momentum going. I know Urban always says he wishes there wasn't a bye week when they're playing well. When they're not playing well, you'll take the bye week to try to work on stuff.
Oh, sure.
But when you're playing well, when they're clicking like this is the best they've looked. I would just rather have them keep that momentum going and just keep doing what you're doing. But they're clicking well. They're getting 47 points a game. Meanwhile, Penn State is giving up just 9 points a game. Now, granted, Penn State hasn't played that rough of a schedule. So
I was just
Iowa was their toughest game.
Their schedule. Yeah, and it's.
They did play Pitt, which is, I guess some would say is a rival, but if you ask James Franklin, he says they're just Akron. So so that's just like playing Akron. So we can't consider that to be a stout game.
Right.
So I don't think Ohio State's going to get what they normally get, that 47 points, but I don't think Penn State's going to hold them to 9 either. So I'm going to go with 31 points for Ohio State.
Okay.
Meanwhile, Penn State is getting almost 40 points a game, 39.7, but Ohio State's only giving up 15 points a game. I think we split the difference there a little closer to the Ohio State side, and I've got it 31-24, the good guys.
31-24. Well, that was the score there in 2014 when they won in double overtime, 31-24. I like it. Yeah. I like it. We both think that Penn State scores 24 points. I think Ohio State 27 points, and you say Buckeye scored just a little bit more than that with 31. So you got them by a touchdown. I got them by a field goal. Either way, we got the good guys winning the game, and it's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah.
It's going to be a very no need to state it, Chris, but obviously, in 2 weeks, man, it's huge. This game might be bigger than the Oklahoma game, quite frankly. This is
Absolutely.
this is an undefeated Penn State team, considering what happened last year over there in Happy Valley. This is a game, obviously, that, you can lose to Oklahoma and still go play for the national championship, but this is definitely a lot more on the line when it comes to gaining a foothold in your division just to try and make the conference championship game, which is, of course, the doorway to the Final Four. So, this is without a doubt the biggest game as of yet, I'd say, on the schedule for Ohio State. It's going to be a huge one, man. I can't wait. Should be good stuff.
Yep. Yeah, it is. It is. And if they lose, they're out of the playoffs and probably out of the Big Ten championship. So this is for all the marbles
exactly.
right here.
Yeah, I mean, whoever wins this game, I would say, has the best opportunity at making the college football play or the Big Ten championship game.
Yep,
yeah,
absolutely.
So there you go, folks. Another edition of the Buckeye Leaf Cast. I'm Andy Evans. He is the intergalactic Buckeye fan, Mr. Chris Stefanick. And before we drop the mic, sir, let everybody else know where they can hear you aside from the Buckeye Leaf Cast.
Sure. So I have another podcast called Choice Conversations. You can find me at choiceconversations.com, where it's a personal development podcast. I talk about how you can improve your life in all areas. So like an example, had a really cool interview with Jordan Harbinger. He is a guy who he is an expert in like communication and persuasion and charm. And he's kind of well known for helping guys out with like dating, doing dating coaching, and but also in the business area. So it's not just the business area. He can help you to get your social skills, those soft skills on to improve and in your day job kind of thing. So if you're somebody who could use some help in those areas. I mean, now I know Rico Suave over here on the other side of the mic, Andrew Evans.
I know you're not talking about me.
He wouldn't need this kind of coaching, but if you're not a Casanova like my partner over here, then you probably could use some Jordan Harbinger, and the place to find him is choiceconversations.com. Check it out.
I don't know. I could probably use some help regardless. I mean, does he deal with psychosis and bouts of mania and stuff like that? If that's the case, I need to hit this guy up, have a choice conversation with.
Now the listeners may not know that Andy's nickname, off the air is Rico Suave. So, there was a lot of hearts broken when he was taken off the market by his lovely and talented fiancée. So.
Yes,
Andrew Evans, he will provocar tus gritos. I will say that.
Boy, I wish that was the truth, sir. But hey, once again, my heart flutters and begins to pound with excitement when you say those kinds of things to me, man. It's magic coming from your lips, sir. And I, of course, am grateful for your endearing words. But there it is. Yes, hey, go check him out, folks. ChoiceConversations.com. Hit Chris up on Twitter as well. He's at ChoiceConvo. And tell the intergalactic Buckeye fan you need some improvement, you want to talk, he's there to help you out. As always, the talent from Mr. Stefanick is it supersedes everything, dude. And just glad that you're on here to level me out, and have a choice conversation about some Ohio State football. Talk some sense into me. Hey, you and me both, brother. Trust me. It's also brought to you by Christie's Cleaning Services, LLC. It's not clean until it's Christie clean. Be sure to visit her Facebook page at Christie's Cleaning Services, LLC. And also brought to you by Columbus Wired, for your premier source for Central Ohio sports and beyond. Check us out at columbuswired.net. So there you go, folks. Big game, 2 weeks. We may talk to you next week. We may not. So if we do not talk, Chris, next week, certainly we're going to have a huge discussion in a couple Saturdays from now, and I can't wait. We're probably going to be talking at least off the air, leading up to the big game. So
absolutely.
Let's leave them like we always do, sir. Go Bucks!
I want to go back to Ohio State, to old Columbus town. To the stadium to hear the band, by far the finest in the land. I want to go back to Ohio State, to old Columbus town. I want to go back, I gotta go back to Ohio, Ohio, Ohio. The hills send back the cry, oh wait, we're here to do or die. Ohio, Ohio. We'll win the game or know the reason why. And when we win the game, we'll buy a keg of booze. And we'll drink to old Ohio till we wobble in our shoes. Ohio.